My daughter's bride called me a worthless piece of trash at her own wedding. Grace Parker stood there in her $16,500 dress, pointing at me in front of 325 guests. "You are not just homeless," she announced to the silent Four Seasons ballroom. "You are human garbage. Mental patients like you should not be around decent people." The wedding guests pulled out their phones and started recording. My daughter Maya just stood there saying nothing. I did not flinch, did not argue, did not beg for respect. I simply looked at Grace's father, tech CEO Michael Parker, and gave him the slightest nod. He had no idea that nod would cost him everything. You see, while Grace was busy humiliating me, I was calculating exactly how much her family's empire was worth and how easily I could take it all away. If you have ever been underestimated, you will want to hear what happened next. Let me back up and tell you how I ended up at that wedding in the first place. 3 years ago, I was Carolyn Bishop, CEO of Bishop Technologies. We had 58 employees, contracts worth $52 million, and patents that would revolutionize mobile computing. Then my husband Thomas got cancer. The medical bills destroyed us. $450,000 in 7 months. I sold everything: the house, the cars, my stake in the company. Thomas died anyway, and the vultures moved in fast. Michael Parker's lawyers bought my patents for pennies on the dollar while I was planning the funeral, said it was a distressed asset acquisition. Legal theft, but perfectly documented. $14,000 for patents that would be worth $330 million. I ended up at the Riverside Homeless Shelter on Oak Street, bed number 52. Address, 1358 Oak Street, Seattle, Washington. That is what I wrote on all the forms for the next 3 years. 1,095 days on the streets. My daughter Maya visited 3 times, brought her new girlfriend Grace each time. Grace made it clear I embarrassed them both. "Your mom's situation is unfortunate," she would say, like I had the flu instead of sleeping under bridges, but Grace wanted me at the wedding. Not out of kindness, out of control. She needed everyone to see the contrast. The perfect Parker family versus the broken Bishop women. "It will show Maya where she comes from," she told her friends. I heard her on the phone. Sometimes people need to see failure up close. The wedding was everything Grace dreamed of. Four Seasons Presidential Ballroom, $220,000 for one night, imported flowers from Holland, a 12-piece orchestra, 325 guests in designer everything. I wore a navy pantsuit from Goodwill, $14. The shoes had holes, but I polished them anyway. Grace's entrance was perfect. Vera Wang dress, $16,500. Her father walked her down the aisle. Michael Parker, CEO of Parker Tech Solutions. The man who built his empire on my stolen algorithms. During the ceremony, I watched him beam with pride. His daughter was marrying into a good family. That is what the pastor said. I almost laughed. The reception started smooth. I found a corner table, ate my rubber chicken, stayed invisible. Maya looked beautiful in her tuxedo, happy even. Maybe this would work out. Then Grace's maid of honor gave a speech about overcoming obstacles and rising above circumstances. She kept looking at me while she talked. The guests started turning around, following her gaze. That is when Grace decided to make her statement. She walked over to my table, champagne glass in hand, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Maya's mother." The room went quiet. 325 people all staring. "This is Carolyn Bishop," she announced. "She used to pretend she was somebody important. Now she lives in a homeless shelter because she could not handle real life." Phones came out. Started recording. This was going viral for sure. But that is not the best part. Grace continued, her voice getting louder. "Carolyn here thinks she deserves respect, thinks we should treat her like family just because Maya feels sorry for her." Michael Parker was watching from the head table. He could have stopped this, should have stopped this. Instead, he sat there smiling, letting his daughter humiliate a woman who had already lost everything. "The truth is," Grace said, leaning down so the microphones would catch every word, "some people are just worthless." Natural selection. Carolyn is not homeless because of bad luck. She is homeless because she is weak, because she is a failure, because she is exactly where she belongs. The crowd was eating it up. Designer dresses and $1,000 suits, all laughing at the broken woman in the corner. "You are not just homeless," Grace said. Her final verdict delivered with perfect cruelty. "You are human garbage. Mental patients like you should not be around decent people. You embarrass this family just by breathing." Maya said nothing. My own daughter, standing 10 feet away watching her wife destroy her mother for entertainment. That is when I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. I stood up slowly, straightened my $14 jacket, and looked directly at Michael Parker. "Congratulations on your daughter's wedding, Michael," I said quietly. "I am sure you are very proud of the woman you raised." Then I walked out of that ballroom with every camera following me. Grace thought she had won, thought she had finally gotten rid of the embarrassing mother-in-law, the homeless burden who reminded everyone where Maya really came from. She had no idea she had just declared war on the wrong woman, because while Grace was busy humiliating me in public, I was making mental notes. 325 witnesses, dozens of recordings, all the evidence I would need for what came next. You see, there is something Grace did not know about those 3 years I spent homeless. Something Michael Parker would have paid millions to keep secret. I had not been sitting in that shelter feeling sorry for myself. I had been working, planning, building something that would change everything. But Grace's social media campaign was about to begin, and she was not finished destroying me yet. I walked back to the shelter that night, 1358 Oak Street, past the security desk, past the common room where men and women sat watching television with dead eyes, past the showers where you waited in line for 5 minutes of lukewarm water, to bed number 52. Same thin mattress I had slept on for 1,095 nights, but something felt different that night. I could still hear Thomas's voice, the way he sounded 3 years ago when the cancer was winning but he was still fighting. "Carolyn," he had said from his hospital bed, "when I am gone, you are going to rebuild. I know you. You do not stay down. I had promised him I would. Promised I would not let them win. Promised I would show Maya what real strength looked like." Tonight, I had kept that promise by walking out of that ballroom with my head high. Tomorrow, I would start keeping the rest of my promises. I pulled out the burner phone I kept hidden in my locker, the one Grace did not know about, the one connected to an email account Grace had never seen. 17 unread messages. Most of them could wait. But one caught my eye. Sender David Chen, Google Ventures. Subject line Final Acquisition Terms. My finger hovered over the email. Once I opened this, everything would change. Grace would learn that the homeless woman she had just humiliated in front of 325 people was not quite as powerless as she looked. Michael Parker would learn that the patents he stole 3 years ago had just become very, very expensive. And Maya would learn that her mother had spent 3 years in that shelter doing something Grace could never imagine. Building the future Grace was about to lose. I opened the email. Read the first line. "We are prepared to move forward with the $330 million acquisition." I smiled for the first time in 3 years. Grace Parker had no idea what was coming, but she was about to find out. The hashtag was already trending by the time I fell asleep. Homeless wedding trash. 2.6 million views in the first 24 hours. Grace's humiliation of me had gone viral exactly the way she planned. But the comments were not what she expected. "This is cruel. Why would anyone do this to their mother-in-law? That bride is a monster. Where is the daughter? Why is she not defending her mom?" Grace's Instagram was being flooded with angry messages. Her carefully curated image of the perfect bride was cracking. And tomorrow morning she was going to call me. She was going to threaten me. She was going to try to make me disappear. She had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead of her. I closed my eyes and heard Thomas's voice one more time. Show them who you really are, Carolyn. Show them what they underestimated. I would, starting tomorrow. 3 years ago, I was someone Grace Parker would have envied. Corner office on the 32nd floor, executive parking spot, business cards that said CEO. Bishop Technologies was my creation. Built from nothing over 15 years, 58 employees who trusted me, $52 million in active contracts, patents that would change how mobile devices processed information. I was not just successful, I was respected. Thomas and I had plans. We were going to sell the company in 5 years, retire to somewhere warm, maybe open a small consulting firm helping other women build tech startups. We had it all mapped out. Then came the diagnosis. Stage 4 lung cancer. The doctors gave him 18 months. He fought for 21. Every extra day cost us everything we had built. The American healthcare system is designed to bankrupt you while you watch someone you love die slowly. $450,000 in 7 months. Chemotherapy. Radiation. Experimental treatments insurance would not cover. Clinical trials that required us to pay for everything ourselves. I mortgaged the house. Maxed out every credit card. Sold my car. Then Thomas's car. We borrowed from friends who stopped returning calls when they realized we could never pay them back. I started liquidating my stake in Bishop Technologies. Piece by piece. First 10%, then 20%, then everything. By month 5, I owned nothing of the company I had built. The patents were the last thing left. 7 algorithms that revolutionized neural network optimization for mobile devices. My life's work. The technology that would define the next generation of smartphones. Michael Parker's lawyers approached me during the funeral planning. I was sitting in a coffee shop, trying to decide between cremation and burial, trying to figure out how to afford either one. They slid a contract across the table. Distressed asset acquisition, $14,000 for all 7 patents. I knew they were worth millions. Knew Michael Parker was stealing from me. But Thomas had 3 days left. The hospital wanted payment before they would continue care. $14,000 meant 3 more days with my husband. I signed. Thomas died anyway. 72 hours later, in a hospital room that cost $8,000 per day. I held his hand while he took his last breath. "You are going to be okay," he whispered. "You are the strongest person I know. You are going to rebuild everything." I wanted to believe him. But when the hospital bills came, when the mortgage payment bounced, when the eviction notice arrived, I realized there was nothing left to rebuild from. I ended up at Riverside Homeless Shelter 3 weeks after Thomas's funeral. Bed number 52, same bed I would sleep in for the next 1,095 days. Maya visited the first time 2 months after I moved into the shelter. She brought Grace. They had been dating for 6 months. Grace looked around the shelter common room like she was touring a zoo. "Is this really where you are living, Carolyn?" Her voice dripped with judgment. "Temporarily," I said, "until I can get back on my feet." Grace exchanged a look with Maya. A look that said, "Your mother is pathetic." Maya saw it, said nothing. That was the first time my daughter chose Grace over me. It would not be the last. The second visit came 8 months later. Maya and Grace were engaged. They wanted to tell me in person. "Congratulations," I said. "I am happy for you both." "Are you going to be okay, Mom?" Maya asked. "Financially, I mean. For the wedding." I looked at my daughter, at the woman I had raised. The woman whose college education I had paid for by working 70-hour weeks. "I will figure something out," I said. Grace smiled. "Do not worry about it, Carolyn. We understand you are going through a difficult period. A difficult period. Like homelessness was a phase I was choosing. The third visit happened 2 months before the wedding. Maya came alone this time. Grace was at a dress fitting. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something." I knew that tone. The same tone she had used when she wrecked my car at 17, when she failed a class in college, when she needed me to fix something. "What is wrong, sweetheart?" "It is about the wedding." My heart sank. "Grace thinks." Maya paused. "Grace thinks it might be better if you did not come." The words hit like a physical blow. My own daughter, uninviting me from her wedding. "I am your mother, Maya." "I know, but Grace's family. They are very image conscious. And with your current situation, you mean because I am homeless?" Maya looked at her shoes. "Grace thinks it will make her family uncomfortable." "Let me tell you something about Grace's family," I started, but Maya held up her hand. "Mom, please. I am trying to make this work. I love her. Do you love her more than you love your mother? That is not fair, is it not? I raised you alone after your father left. I worked every day to give you everything you needed, and now you are going to let your fiancé uninvite me from your wedding because I embarrass her." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I am sorry, Mom." But a week later, Maya called again. Grace changed her mind. "You can come to the wedding." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you, sweetheart. There is one condition." "What condition?" "You have to understand that this is Grace's day. Her family will be there. Important people. Business connections. You just need to." Maya paused again. "You need to stay quiet. Be invisible. Do not talk about your situation or your past. Just let Grace have her perfect wedding." That is when I realized. Grace had not changed her mind out of kindness. She wanted me there as a prop, a reminder to everyone of where Maya came from, a contrast to show how far the Parker family had elevated my daughter. I should have said no, should have refused to be Grace's circus animal, but I wanted to see my daughter get married, even if it meant swallowing my pride, so I agreed. And Grace got exactly what she wanted. A homeless woman in a Goodwill suit sitting in the corner while 325 guests stared, while Grace humiliated me for entertainment, while Maya stood silent and let it happen. But what Grace did not know is that I had not spent 3 years feeling sorry for myself. While she was planning her perfect wedding, I was planning something else. The Seattle Public Library became my office, third-floor computer lab, open from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. I arrived when the doors opened, left when they closed, 13 to 15 hours a day for 20 months. The librarians knew me by name. The homeless woman who sat at computer station 7. The woman who never bothered anyone, just typed constantly, taking notes, writing code, testing algorithms on a burner phone I bought with money from odd jobs. What was I working on? The same technology Michael Parker had stolen from me, but better, faster, more efficient. I had spent 15 years developing the original patents. I knew every line of code, every optimization, every weakness, and I had 20 months to improve everything. Neural network optimization for mobile devices, algorithms that would make phones 50% faster while using 32% less battery power, technology that would revolutionize the industry. I filed 7 new patents, US 11024567 through US 11024573, all approved, all legally mine. Then I contacted Google. Told them I had something revolutionary, something worth hundreds of millions. They laughed at first, a homeless woman claiming to have breakthrough technology, but I sent them the code, sent them the test results, sent them proof that everything I claimed was real. 6 months of negotiations, all conducted through encrypted emails and proxy meetings. Google wanted my algorithms badly, and I wanted them to want it badly enough to pay what it was worth. $330 million. That was my price. They agreed yesterday. The contract was ready to sign, and Grace had just given me the perfect motivation to go public with everything. 2 days after the wedding, my phone rang at 7:12 a.m. Grace's voice was ice cold. "We need to talk, Carolyn." I was sitting on my cot at the shelter, watching the sunrise through barred windows. Same view I had had for 3 years. But something felt different that morning. "Good morning, Grace. How is married life?" "Cut the act. You know exactly why I am calling." She was right. The wedding videos had gone viral. The hashtag homeless wedding trash was trending on social media. Grace's humiliation of me had been viewed 2.6 million times in 48 hours. But the comments were not what she expected. "These people are sick," Grace snapped. "They are calling me a monster, saying I am cruel. They do not understand what you put this family through." I stayed quiet, let her dig her hole deeper. Maya has been getting calls all morning. Her coworkers saw the videos. Her boss asked if her family has issues. "Do you know what you have done to her reputation?" "I did not make those videos, Grace. Your wedding guests did. Because you were there. Because you insisted on showing up and embarrassing everyone." The irony was beautiful. Grace had orchestrated the whole thing, invited me specifically to humiliate me, and now she was furious that people had recorded it. "What do you want, Grace?" "I want you gone. Permanently." Her voice got that dangerous edge I had heard at the wedding. The sound of someone used to getting exactly what they wanted. "Here is what is going to happen, Carolyn. You are going to disappear from Maya's life. No more calls, no more visits, no more guilt trips about being her mother. And if I do not," Grace laughed. Actually laughed. "Then I will make your life even more miserable than it already is. You think sleeping in a shelter is bad? I can have you banned from every homeless facility in Seattle. One call to the right people, and you will be living under freeway overpasses." I listened to her breathe, calculating her next move. "But that is just the beginning," she continued. "I will have you evaluated by a psychiatrist, get you declared mentally incompetent. The courts love protecting society from unstable homeless women who stalk families. The threat was real. Grace had resources, connections, lawyers. She could make it happen. My father knows judges, Carolyn, city council members. The police chief plays golf at our country club. One restraining order, and you will be arrested if you come within 600 feet of Maya." "You would really do that to your wife's mother?" "I would do that to protect my wife from her mistake of a mother." There it was. Her final verdict. Maya choosing me had been a mistake she intended to correct. "But I am not unreasonable," Grace said, her voice turning fake sweet. "I will make you a deal. Disappear quietly, and I will send you $1,200 a month, cash. Enough to get a room somewhere, stay out of shelters, blood money, payment for agreeing to stop existing. All you have to do is sign a document saying you will never contact Maya again. Never show up at family events. Never claim to be her mother in public." What does Maya think about this offer? Silence. Long telling silence. Maya does not need to think about it. "I am handling this situation." "Put her on the phone." "She is not available." "It is 7:12 in the morning, Grace." "She is right there." Maya agrees with me. She is tired of being embarrassed by you. Tired of making excuses for why her mother is a homeless failure. I could hear movement in the background, a door closing. She had left the room so Maya could not hear this conversation. "You have 24 hours to decide," Grace said. "Take the money and disappear, or I will make sure you regret ever showing up at my wedding. And if I want to talk to my daughter before I make this decision." "Your daughter does not want to talk to you. She made her choice at the wedding, remember. She stood there and watched me tell the truth about you. Did not say one word in your defense. That part hurt because it was true." Face reality, Carolyn. Maya has a new life now, a better life with people who matter. You are just a reminder of where she came from, and where she came from is not good enough anymore. I looked around the shelter, 52 other people getting ready for another day of invisible existence. Most of them would never climb out of this hole. But I was not most of them. I understand perfectly, Grace. Good. I will have the papers drawn up. 1,200 a month and you become a ghost. There is just one thing I need to tell you. What? You are about to learn something very important about making assumptions. I could hear her breathing change. Uncertainty creeping in. What is that supposed to mean? It means you should have done your research before declaring war. I hung up. For 3 years, I had let people assume things about me. Let them see the homeless woman and stop looking deeper. It was easier that way. Safer. But Grace had just crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. She had threatened to take away the one thing that mattered. My relationship with Maya. Time to show her who she was really dealing with. I walked to the shelter's computer room and logged into an account Grace did not know existed. An account with a very interesting balance. That is when I made the call that changed everything. The number I dialed belonged to someone Grace Parker had never heard of, but her father definitely had. Google Ventures, this is Jennifer speaking. This is Carolyn Bishop. I need to speak with David Chen about finalizing the acquisition. One moment, Miss Bishop. I was standing in the Seattle Public Library. Same place I had spent most of my daylight hours for 3 years. The homeless were not welcome in coffee shops or office buildings. But libraries never turned anyone away. Carolyn, we have been waiting for your call. David Chen, Senior Vice President of Strategic Acquisitions. We had been negotiating for 6 months through encrypted emails and proxy meetings. Google wanted my algorithms badly. Are we still good for the $330 million? The board approved it yesterday. When can you sign? Today. But I want the announcement public. Press release. Tech blogs. The full treatment. That is unusual for you, Carolyn. You have been obsessing about anonymity. He was right. For 20 months, I had insisted on complete secrecy, no publicity, no interviews, no connection to my past life. I had told Google I was a privacy-focused developer who preferred staying in the shadows. But Grace had just changed my priorities. Things have evolved, David. I am ready to go public. Outstanding. Can you be here by 3? I looked at my reflection in the library window. Homeless shelter clothes. 4-day hair. Carrying everything I owned in a plastic grocery bag. Not exactly CEO material. I will need an hour to prepare. After hanging up, I walked 6 blocks to Nordstrom. The security guard followed me inside. Homeless people made expensive stores nervous, but they could not throw me out for looking poor. I need a suit, I told the first salesperson who would speak to me. Budget is $5,500. She looked me up and down, clearly skeptical. Ma'am, our suits start at $1,300. I pulled out a credit card. This should cover it. The card was linked to a development account I had kept active throughout my homeless years. $13,500. Everything I had made freelancing while living in the shelter. 2 hours later, I was sitting in Google's Seattle office, wearing a charcoal gray Armani suit. Signing the largest technology acquisition of the year. Thomas would have been proud. The algorithm is revolutionary, David was explaining to the media team. Neural network optimization for mobile devices. It will increase processing speed by 50% while using 32% less battery. He did not know I had developed it on public library computers while homeless people slept around me. Did not know I had tested it on a burner phone bought with money from collecting cans. Where did this technology come from? Asked the tech reporter from GeekWire. I looked directly into the camera. Sometimes the most important innovations come from the most unexpected places. The paperwork took 3 hours. Patents, US 11024567 through US 11024573, 7 algorithms that would power the next generation of smartphones. Google was buying exclusive rights worldwide. Final price, $330 million. Wire transfer to Wells Fargo, account ending in 91052. Confirmation received at 3:47 p.m., July 22, 2024. I was no longer homeless, but more importantly, I was no longer powerless. The first thing I did was research Parker Tech Solutions, Michael Parker's company. Built on my stolen patents from 3 years ago. Current valuation $1.3 billion. Stock price $89 per share. 76% of their mobile division was based on algorithms stolen from my original company. Algorithms that were now legally mine again, thanks to some very expensive patent lawyers. Grace had made one critical mistake in her ultimatum call. She had threatened to destroy me using her father's connections and resources. She had no idea her father's entire empire was built on technology I had invented. I made my second call of the day, Morrison Klein & Associates, Intellectual Property Division. This is Carolyn Bishop. I need to sue someone for patent infringement. The damages are going to be substantial. How substantial, Miss Bishop? Conservative estimate, $52 million in direct damages, maybe twice that with punitive awards. And you have proof of the infringement. I have the original source code, development logs, and 3 years of stolen profits, plus Google's acquisition validates the patent's value. We can file by tomorrow morning. Perfect. And I want media coverage, full transparency. Let the world see exactly what Parker Tech built their fortune on. By 6 p.m., I was sitting in a furnished apartment I had rented for $9,000 per month. The paperwork was signed, the lawsuit was filed, and Michael Parker was about to learn who he had really stolen from. But Grace still thought I was sleeping in a homeless shelter, counting her blood money. Maya thought that was the biggest surprise I had in store. She had no idea what was coming next. I called Maya at 7:45 a.m. the next morning. Mom, how did you get this number? Grace had made her change her phone number after the wedding. Did not want me harassing them with calls. But finding people is easy when you have $330 million and good lawyers. We need to meet today. I cannot, Grace says. Grace does not get a vote in this conversation. Parker Tech headquarters lobby. Noon. Mom, you cannot just show up at my work. Security will not even let you in the building. They will let me in. How could you possibly? Because I own 24% of the company your wife's father built. Silence. Long, confused silence. What are you talking about? Noon, Maya. Do not be late. I hung up before she could ask more questions. Let her spend the morning wondering if her homeless mother had finally lost her mind completely. At 11:45, I walked into Parker Tech's 47-story glass tower, wearing a $3,000 suit and carrying a leather briefcase. The security desk did not even blink. Carolyn Bishop to see Maya Bishop, I told the receptionist. She is expecting me. Maya arrived at exactly noon, looking nervous and confused. She barely recognized me. Mom, what? How did you? New clothes. Same mother. I gestured toward the elevators. Let's talk somewhere private. We can use the conference room on 12. As we rode up, Maya kept staring at my suit, my briefcase. My general appearance of not being homeless anymore. Mom, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest. Go ahead. Are you having some kind of breakdown? Because showing up here dressed like this, claiming you own part of the company. Grace is worried you might be having delusions. The elevator opened on 12. Corner conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. I had been in rooms like this before Grace destroyed my life. Sit down, sweetheart. Maya sat across from me, still looking worried, still thinking her mother had snapped. I opened the briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Bank statement from Wells Fargo. Dated yesterday. Read the balance. Maya looked down at the paper. Her face went white. This says $329,700,000. Google bought my patents yesterday. $330 million for 7 algorithms I developed while living in that homeless shelter. That is impossible. I pulled out the second document, Google's press release. Already live on TechCrunch and Wired. Google acquires revolutionary mobile AI technology from independent developer Carolyn Bishop. Maya read aloud. Largest patent acquisition of 2024. Her hands were shaking now. Mom, I do not understand. You have been homeless for 3 years. How could you develop anything? How could you even? Public libraries have excellent computers. And when you have nothing else to do for 15 hours a day, you get very focused on solving problems. Maya looked up from the documents. Why did not you tell me? Because I was not ready, and because I needed to see who you really were when you thought I had nothing. That hit her hard. Good. It was supposed to. At your wedding, you watched your wife humiliate me in front of 325 people. You said nothing, did nothing. Let her call me human garbage while you stood there in your tuxedo. Grace was upset. She did not mean. She meant every word. And so did you by staying silent. I pulled out the third document. The patent lawsuit filed this morning against Parker Tech Solutions. Your father-in-law built his company on technology he stole from me 3 years ago. $52 million in damages, plus punitive awards. Maya's face went from white to gray. You are suing Grace's father. I am recovering what he took from me, what he took from you. Actually, since you are my daughter. Mom, please. This will destroy Grace's family. Cannot we just what? Pretend it never happened. Like you pretended not to hear your wife call me worthless. Maya looked out at the Seattle skyline, probably calculating how many ways this could ruin her marriage. Grace does not know yet, does she? Grace is about to learn several things she does not know. I stood up, leaving the documents on the table. I need to speak with your father-in-law immediately. Mom, wait. I turned back. Yes. Did you really spend 3 years developing this technology? Every single day? While Grace was planning her perfect wedding and telling you to stay invisible, I was planning this. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I am so sorry. Sorry is a start. But it does not undo what happened. What happens now? Now Grace learns that the homeless woman she tried to destroy is not quite as powerless as she thought. Michael Parker's office was everything you would expect from a tech CEO who had built his empire on stolen patents. Floor 45. Panoramic view of Puget Sound. Furniture that cost more than most people's cars. He looked surprised when I walked in, but not alarmed. Maya had called ahead. Said her mother needed 5 minutes to discuss a business opportunity. Michael still saw the homeless woman from the wedding. Even in my expensive suit, he could not quite process that I belonged in his office. Carolyn, good to see you looking better. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. Maya said you wanted to discuss some kind of partnership. That is right, Michael. I have recently come into some intellectual property that might interest Parker Tech. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a folder marked Confidential, Neural Network Optimization, Mobile AI Algorithms. Next generation processing power. Google just validated the technology at $330 million. Michael's eyes lit up. Tech CEOs were like sharks. They could smell profitable innovation from miles away. You developed this. 20 months of work, 7 patents, all approved. The applications are endless. Smartphones, tablets, autonomous vehicles, IoT devices. I slid the folder across his desk. Michael opened it eagerly, scanning the technical specifications. "This is remarkable work, Carolyn. The processing improvements alone could revolutionize our mobile division. I thought you might be interested." Michael was practically salivating. Parker Tech stock had been stagnant for 8 months. Revolutionary AI technology could double their market value overnight. "What kind of licensing arrangement are you thinking?" "Exclusive partnership. Parker Tech gets North American rights. I get 22% of gross revenue from any products using the technology." 22% seems high. "Google offered me $330 million for worldwide rights. I am giving you regional exclusivity for a revenue share." "It is the deal of a lifetime, Michael." He was hooked. I could see the calculations running through his head. Billions in potential revenue. Minimal upfront investment. I would need our technical team to verify the algorithms. Of course, full due diligence. I would not expect anything less. Michael pressed his intercom. "Jennifer, get me David Kim from R&D, emergency meeting. Right away, Mr. Parker." While we waited, Michael leaned back in his chair, studying me with new interest. "I have to ask, Carolyn, where have you been working on this? Maya mentioned you have had some challenges recently." "Perfect opening. I developed everything at the Seattle Public Library. Main branch. 3rd floor. Computer lab. Amazing what you can accomplish when you have unlimited time and no distractions. The public library. When you are homeless, Michael, libraries become your office. Quiet, climate-controlled, free internet access. I spent 13 to 15 hours a day there for 20 months. Michael's expression shifted slightly. The word homeless always made wealthy people uncomfortable. "I did not realize you were between situations." Grace made it pretty clear at the wedding. "Human garbage," I believe she called me. He had the decency to look embarrassed. Grace was emotional. "Wedding stress. You know how it is." "Of course." David Kim arrived 5 minutes later, Parker Tech's head of research and development, Korean-American, MIT PhD, completely brilliant. If anyone could spot what was really happening here, it would be him. "David, I need you to analyze these algorithms. Full technical review, security audit, patent verification." David took the folder, flipped through the specifications. His eyes went wide. "Mr. Parker, this is extraordinary work. These optimization protocols could increase our processing efficiency by 48%. How long for complete analysis?" 24 hours for preliminary review. 72 hours for comprehensive testing. Michael nodded. "Make it priority 1. Cancel everything else." After David left, Michael turned back to me with barely contained excitement. "Carolyn, I think we are looking at a transformational partnership here. Parker Tech could become the dominant player in mobile AI." "I hope so, Michael. I really do. Let me ask you something, and please do not take this the wrong way. But do you have proper legal representation for something this complex?" "I have retained Morrison Klein and Associates, intellectual property specialists." Michael's face went pale. Morrison Klein was the most aggressive IP firm in Seattle. They had destroyed several tech companies over patent disputes. Expensive choice. When you are dealing with $330 million technology, Michael, you do not skimp on legal protection. Smart thinking. I stood up, shaking his hand. "I will wait for David's analysis. Should be very interesting." "I am sure it will be." As I walked toward the elevator, I could hear Michael on the phone, probably calling his own lawyers. Parker's greed was about to destroy him. What they would find in those algorithms would make his blood run cold. David Kim called me at 6:38 a.m. the next morning. His voice was shaking. "Miss Bishop, we need to talk immediately." "Good morning, David. How is the analysis going? I cannot discuss this over the phone. Can you come in? I will be there in an hour." I already knew what David had found. The question was whether he had figured out the full implications yet. When I arrived at Parker Tech, David was waiting in the lobby, dark circles under his eyes, 3 coffee cups on his desk. The look of a man who had not slept. "We need to use conference room C," he said. "Soundproof. No recording devices." Interesting. David was scared. Once we were alone, he pulled out a thick folder marked Confidential Analysis. "Bishop Algorithms. Miss Bishop, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." "Go ahead." "Did you work for Bishop Technologies between 2019 and 2021? "I owned Bishop Technologies." "Why?" David's hands were trembling as he opened the folder. "Because 76% of Parker Tech's mobile operating system is built on algorithms that originated from your company." "That is interesting." "It is more than interesting, Miss Bishop. It is criminal." David spread out dozens of technical documents, source code comparisons, algorithm analyses, patent filings. "These algorithms you are offering to license, they are not new technology. They are updated versions of patents that Parker Tech acquired from Bishop Technologies in 2021. Acquired or stole. The legal paperwork says acquired, but the timestamps on your development files show you were working on version 2.0 updates 20 months after Parker Tech supposedly bought the original patents." David was brilliant. He had connected dots that most people would miss. "Here is what I think happened," he continued. "Parker Tech bought your patents when your company was in financial distress. Fire sale prices, distressed asset acquisition. Legal but ethically questionable. Keep going. But you kept developing the technology, improved it. The algorithms you showed us yesterday are 50% more efficient than what we are currently using." David pulled out another document. "Patent search results from this morning. You filed 7 new patents based on improvements to your original work. All approved, all valid, and Parker Tech has been using preliminary versions of these improvements for 9 months. Our entire mobile division launched last year using algorithms that now belong to you." I stayed quiet, letting him work through the implications. "Miss Bishop, if you wanted to, you could sue Parker Tech for patent infringement. The damages would be enormous." "How enormous?" David did some quick calculations. "Our mobile division generated $52 million in profit last year. If you can prove we used your improved algorithms without permission, I can prove it. Then you could claim every penny, plus punitive damages for willful infringement." "What makes you think it was willful?" David went very quiet. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "Because I found emails from Mr. Parker to our development team from 7 months ago. He specifically instructed us to enhance the Bishop algorithms using publicly available research. He knew. He knew we were building on your work, and he knew we did not have licensing rights for the improvements." David closed the folder. "Miss Bishop, I have to ask, why are you showing us this technology? Why offer us a licensing deal when you could just sue us into bankruptcy?" I looked at David Kim, brilliant, ethical, probably the only honest person in this building, because I want Michael Parker to hang himself with his own greed. "I do not understand." "You will." The conference room door opened. Michael Parker walked in with 3 lawyers and a very worried expression. "Gentlemen," he said, "we need to discuss damage control." While Michael Parker was meeting with lawyers, Grace was launching her social media war. The first post went live at 9:53 a.m. on her Instagram account. 2.6 million followers. Mostly tech industry wives and Seattle socialites. Urgent warning. Con artist targeting our family. Carolyn Bishop is not a tech genius. She is a mentally unstable homeless woman trying to extort money from my father's company. Do not believe her lies. She included photos from the wedding. Me in my Goodwill suit, looking exactly like what I was. The contrast was perfect for her narrative. But Grace's masterpiece was the social media thread, "How a Homeless Stalker is Trying to Destroy My Family," 52 posts detailing my pattern of harassment. And she had hired a private investigator, expensive one, judging by the information quality. Bishop was committed for psychiatric evaluation in 2021 after her husband's death. History of depression, anxiety, and reality dissociation episodes. True but irrelevant. Grief counseling after losing your husband is not mental illness. She has been living in homeless shelters for 3 years. Shelter workers report delusional episodes where she claims to be working on revolutionary technology. Also true, I had told people I was developing algorithms. They assumed I was crazy. Bishop has no technical background. Her company failed because she could not code. Everything was done by employees she fired during financial difficulties. Completely false but cleverly constructed. Grace's investigators had found disgruntled former employees willing to lie for money. The posts went viral immediately. Everyone loves watching a homeless woman get destroyed for pretending to be important. By noon, I had threats in my email. People calling me a fraud, a predator, a mentally ill stalker. Grace's followers were sharing my shelter address, encouraging harassment. But Grace made one critical mistake. At 2:27 p.m., she posted a video. Why we cannot let mentally ill people exploit successful families. In the video, she was sitting in her Mercedes, $162,000 lease payment. License plate Grace P1. Explaining how homeless people use fake success stories to manipulate wealthy families. People like Carolyn Bishop prey on guilt and sympathy. They know we feel bad about homelessness. So they create elaborate fantasies about being secret geniuses. It is manipulation, pure and simple. The video had 580,000 views in 2 hours. Grace thought she was winning. Thought she had successfully destroyed my reputation before I could damage her father's company. She had no idea she had just provided perfect evidence of malicious defamation. At 4:45 p.m., my lawyer called. Carolyn, have you seen what she is posting about you? Every word. This is textbook defamation. Knowingly false statements published to destroy your reputation, causing measurable financial damage. How much damage? Google is considering pulling their acquisition. They do not want to be associated with someone accused of fraud. That is $330 million in indirect damages. Perfect. 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 Carolyn, she is destroying your credibility. She is destroying her family. Get everything documented. Screenshots, timestamps, view counts. I want a complete record. Why? Because Grace just signed her family's death warrant. The truth was coming out tomorrow whether she liked it or not. And when it did, every lie she posted would become evidence against her. Michael tried calling me 6 times that evening. I let every call go to voicemail. Let him sweat overnight. Let him realize the trap he had walked into. David Kim had shown him everything. The source code comparisons, the timeline analyses, the emails proving Michael had knowingly used my improved algorithms without permission. Michael Parker, CEO of Parker Tech Solutions, was facing a lawsuit that would destroy everything he had built on my stolen work. And his daughter had just made it exponentially worse by publicly defaming me while Google's $330 million acquisition was public knowledge. Grace had called me mentally ill, a fraud, a con artist, all while the tech world was celebrating my algorithms as revolutionary breakthrough technology. Tomorrow, the Parker family would learn what happens when you underestimate the wrong woman. Tomorrow, 325 wedding guests would see those viral videos in a very different light. Tomorrow, Maya would have to choose between her wife and her mother, and I already knew which choice would destroy her marriage. Because some mistakes cannot be forgiven, some words cannot be taken back, and some families were built on lies that were about to be exposed. Maya called me at 10:32 p.m. Her voice was shaking. Mom, what is Grace doing? I was sitting in my new apartment, $9,000 monthly rent, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, a view I had dreamed about during 1,095 nights in that shelter. Have you seen her posts? Every single one. Mom, she is saying terrible things, calling you mentally ill, a fraud. She is claiming you are stalking our family. Is any of it true? Is any of what true, Maya? The psychiatric evaluation, the delusions about technology. Did you really tell shelter workers you were developing algorithms? I told them the truth. They chose not to believe me. Same way you chose not to believe me. That hit hard. I could hear her breathing change. Mom, I did not know. You did not want to know. There is a difference. Silence stretched between us. Mom, Grace showed me the investigator's report. It says your company failed because you could not code. That employees did all the technical work. Your wife paid people to lie, Maya. I built Bishop Technologies from nothing, wrote every line of the original code myself. But Grace needed a narrative that made me look incompetent. So she bought one. How can you prove that? I have 15 years of development logs, timestamps on every file. Patent applications with my name as sole inventor. Google did not pay $330 million for technology I did not create. Maya went quiet for a long moment. Grace says Google made a mistake, that they will realize it soon and pull the deal. Is that what she told you? She says you manipulated them somehow. Used sympathy about being homeless to trick them into buying worthless algorithms. Maya, do you know how Google vetting works? They have teams of engineers who verify everything. They spent 6 months analyzing my code, testing it, comparing it to existing technology. They do not make $330 million mistakes, but Grace says, Grace is lying, and you need to decide if you believe your wife or your mother. I could hear movement on her end. A door closing. She had left the room. Grace does not know I am calling you. She would be furious. Why would she be furious? Because she told me not to have any contact with you until this all blows over. Until what blows over, Maya? Until people forget about the wedding videos. Until her social media campaign convinces everyone you are crazy. Until she successfully erases me from your life. Mom, that is not fair, is it not? She offered me $1,200 a month to disappear, to sign away my right to be your mother, to never contact you again. Maya's breath caught. She did what? Ask her yourself. Better yet, ask her why she is so desperate to get rid of me. What do you mean? I mean your wife's family built their fortune on technology they stole from me. And Grace knows that if I fight back, everything her father has will disappear. That is crazy, is it? Ask Michael Parker where he got the patents that power 76% of his mobile division. Ask him how much he paid for them. Ask him if he knew my husband was dying when he bought my life's work for $14,000. Silence. She did not call me crazy again. Mom, if this is true, if everything you are saying is real, it is real. Maya. The lawsuit was filed yesterday. Morrison Klein and Associates, the most aggressive intellectual property firm in Seattle. They do not take cases they cannot win. Why did not you tell me? I tried to tell you 3 months ago, before the wedding. You told me not to talk about my situation. Grace said it would ruin her perfect day. So I stayed quiet. And you let her humiliate me in front of 325 people. Mom, I am so sorry. Sorry does not undo what happened. But it is a start. What do you need me to do? I need you to decide who you believe. Me or Grace. I need you to look at the evidence instead of listening to your wife's lies. And I need you to be ready for what happens next. What happens next? Tomorrow, the truth comes out. Michael Parker is holding an emergency board meeting. Grace's defamation will be presented as evidence. And your wife is going to learn that destroying people has consequences. Maya was crying now. I did not know. I swear I did not know. I believe you. But you are going to have to choose, Maya, between your wife and your mother, between the truth and Grace's lies. I cannot choose. Then Grace will choose for you, and I promise you will not like her choice. I hung up before Maya could respond. Let her sit with that overnight. Let her look at her wife and wonder what else Grace had lied about. Let her realize that the perfect Parker family was built on theft and fraud. Tomorrow, everything would be exposed. The Parker Tech Emergency Board meeting was scheduled for 2:30 p.m., August 14th, 2024. 14 board members, 3 lawyers, 2 patent experts, and a reporter from TechCrunch who had somehow gotten wind of the story. Michael had tried to keep it private. But when you are facing a potential $74 million lawsuit, word gets out. I arrived at 2:15, charcoal gray suit, carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would end Michael Parker's career. Grace was already there. She had convinced Michael to let her attend. Family support during a difficult time. She sat in the back corner, filming everything on her phone for another social media post about the delusional homeless woman. She looked confident, smug even. Her viral campaign had convinced half of Seattle I was a mentally ill fraud. The board would laugh me out of the room, and she could finally be rid of her embarrassing mother-in-law forever. Michael called the meeting to order at exactly 2:30. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to address the patent infringement claims made by Carolyn Bishop. Before we begin, I want to note that Miss Bishop has been experiencing some personal difficulties recently. Grace smiled from the corner. She had coached him well. Miss Bishop claims to own patents that Parker Tech has allegedly infringed upon. Our legal team has prepared a response. Parker's lead attorney stood up, Harrison Webb from Gibson Klein and Associates. $550 an hour. Specialized in crushing patent trolls and nuisance lawsuits. Miss Bishop's claims are baseless, Webb began. She is a homeless individual with documented mental health issues attempting to extort money from a successful company through fraudulent patent claims. Webb pulled out printouts of Grace's social media posts. As you can see, Miss Bishop has been living in homeless shelters for 3 years. She has no technical background, no development resources, no credible explanation for how she could have created cutting-edge AI algorithms. The board members were nodding. This was exactly what they had expected, a nuisance lawsuit from someone desperate enough to try anything. Furthermore, Webb continued, Parker Tech's algorithms were developed by our internal R&D team, led by Dr. David Kim. We have documentation proving independent development of all disputed technology. Grace was practically glowing. Her social media strategy was working perfectly. Miss Bishop, Michael said, would you like to respond to these allegations? I stood up slowly, opened my briefcase, pulled out a single sheet of paper. I would like to introduce some evidence. I handed copies to every board member. Bank statement from Wells Fargo, dated July 23, 2024. Current balance $329,700,000. Michael's face went white. How did you get internal emails? Discovery process in federal court. Your IT department was very cooperative. Grace stood up suddenly. This is ridiculous. She is a mentally ill homeless woman. Look at her. Perfect. Exactly what I needed. You are right, Grace. Let us look at me. I pulled out my phone, opened the video she had posted yesterday, played it for the entire room. People like Carolyn Bishop prey on guilt and sympathy. They create elaborate fantasies about being secret geniuses. It is manipulation pure and simple. Grace's own voice filled the boardroom. That video has 1.4 million views, posted while Google's $330 million acquisition was public knowledge. I looked directly at Grace. Tell me, Grace, if I am a delusional homeless woman with no technical background, how did Google validate my work with the largest patent acquisition of 2024? She opened her mouth, then closed it. No answer. Mr. Parker, I continued, your daughter has spent the last 72 hours publicly defaming me on social media, calling me a fraud and a con artist, all while knowing that Google had verified my patents with a $330 million purchase. Michael looked at Grace in horror. What have you done? The defamation lawsuit will be separate from the patent infringement case, but both will be filed in federal court by end of business today. Grace was still holding her phone, probably planning another social media post about the elaborate scam. Go ahead and post it, Grace. Every video you make is evidence of ongoing defamation. Board member Patricia Williams raised her hand. Miss Bishop, what are you seeking in damages? Patent infringement, $52 million in direct damages, plus punitive awards for willful infringement. Defamation, additional $22 million for reputational damage and interference with business relationships. $74 million total. Could be twice that if the jury finds the infringement particularly egregious. Michael Parker looked at his daughter with complete devastation. Then he did something that surprised everyone in that room. He stood up and bowed. 8 seconds. Michael Parker's bow lasted exactly 8 seconds, long enough for every camera in the room to capture it, long enough for his 40-year career to end in complete humiliation. When he straightened up, his voice was barely a whisper. Miss Bishop, on behalf of Parker Tech Solutions, I formally apologize for the unauthorized use of your patented technology. The boardroom was dead silent. 14 of Seattle's most powerful business leaders watching a tech empire collapse in real time. Furthermore, Michael continued, I apologize for my daughter's defamatory statements about your character and mental health. Her actions do not represent this company's values. Grace was still holding her phone, still recording. She looked like she was watching her entire world crumble. We are prepared to negotiate a settlement that fairly compensates you for damages incurred. $74 million, I said calmly. 52 for patent infringement, 22 for defamation damages. Board member Patricia Williams cleared her throat. Mr. Parker, does the company have that kind of liquidity? Michael looked at his CFO, who shook his head grimly. We would need to liquidate substantial assets. The settlement required board approval, 48 hours for wire transfer authorization. On August 16th at 6:14 p.m., Wells Fargo confirmed the transfer. Account balance $403,700,000. I bought a house in Capitol Hill the next day. Nothing too fancy, just a place with a view of Elliott Bay where a formerly homeless mother could have dinner with her daughter without anyone calling security. Maya filed for divorce 4 weeks later. The grounds were irreconcilable differences, but everyone knew the truth. Grace's social media war had shown Maya exactly who she had married. A woman willing to destroy her wife's mother for the crime of existing. Maya moved into an apartment near mine. We had dinner twice a week. Slowly rebuilding the relationship Grace had tried to sever. I am sorry, Mom, she told me during our first real conversation in 3 years. At the wedding, I should have said something, should have defended you. You were in an impossible position, sweetheart. That is not an excuse. Grace was wrong, and I knew it. I just wanted to fit into her world so badly that I forgot where I came from. Where you came from made you who you are. Do not ever be ashamed of that. Parker Tech Solutions filed for bankruptcy 7 months later. The settlement had gutted their cash reserves. And without the stolen algorithms, their mobile division collapsed. Michael Parker resigned in disgrace, disappeared from Seattle entirely. Grace's social media accounts went dark after the divorce. Her videos about fake homeless success stories became internet memes, cautionary tales about making assumptions. I established the Thomas Bishop Foundation for Homeless Innovation, $55 million. funding technology education programs in shelters across the country, proving that genius can emerge from anywhere, even from people society has written off. The Foundation's motto, printed on every computer we donated, never underestimate the woman who works while others sleep. Because that is what I learned during those 3 years on the streets. While Grace Parker was posting Instagram photos and planning elaborate weddings, I was writing code that would change the world. While Michael Parker was building his empire on stolen ideas, I was creating something genuinely revolutionary. While everyone else saw a homeless failure, I was becoming the person who would take everything back. Sometimes the most important victories happen in silence, before anyone realizes the game has changed, and sometimes justice takes 3 years to arrive. But when it does, it is absolutely worth the wait. Where are you listening from right now? What city? What state? What country? Drop it in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories reach across the world. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Share it if you know someone whose family turned on them when they had nothing, someone who was called human garbage by the people who should have loved them, someone who was underestimated because they were homeless, because they were struggling, because society decided they did not matter anymore. Subscribe because I have more stories about people who were counted out, written off, and left for dead, but who came back stronger than anyone imagined. And that underestimating someone based on their circumstances is the fastest way to lose everything. Carolyn spent 3 years sleeping in a homeless shelter, 3 years being invisible, 3 years being called mentally ill, a failure, human garbage. But she used those 3 years to build something revolutionary, to prove that where you sleep does not determine what you can create, to show that the woman working in silence while everyone sleeps is often the most dangerous person in the room. See you in the next story.